Hi, this is Kevin Trainer, and I'd like to welcome you to the demo of XSLT for publishing. And we're going to go back to a project that we've worked on previously, which is, well, let's just open it up. Here it is right here. Open up the folder. And I have a project associated with it, an Oxygen XML editor project, so we're going to click on that and get the editor started. And as it loads up our new project, we will see that I've got one directory within the project, and it's holding the XML content, the XML schemas, and the XSLT style sheets. And so I think in the last one of these I called it documents. And here I decided to be a little more descriptive. I called it content, schemas, and style sheets. And if I look inside, I can see that I'm back working with the article for the Only Right site, which is kind of easy for me because I'm the guy who authored the original document. And let's open up the article itself. And I have to remind myself all the time that when I'm in my virtual machine, I can't just simply do double click. So there's the article itself. And it happens to be connected to a no namespace schema called article.xsd. So why don't we open that too? And here's a peek at our schema. We did this a couple of units ago. And if we go back to the article and click on the check mark, we'll see that it validates, and that's fine. So what I want to do here is to show you what I would do to create an XSLT transformation of the article document in which we transform it into a presentable HTML page. Now, I'm gonna share my tips and tricks, and my thing is that I rarely start an XSLT style sheet from scratch. I'm almost always cannibalize one. So I'm going to cannibalize the one that I created in the last of the units. So let me go up and do a file open. And it's not right here, so why don't we go look in documents. And here we are. And ACES Student Chapter XLT demo, that's the one we did last unit. And I go into documents, and I'll see there's a generate ACES chapter list. .xsl, that's the one I want to open up, and that's the one I'm going to cannibalize. Okay, so I open that up, and right away I'm going to want to save it under a new name in a new directory. So I'm going to say File, Save As, and let's find our way to the proper directory. So we're in Documents, and let's go to Info 780, Demo XSLT for Publishing, Content Schema, and Style Sheets, and let's just put it in here. But instead of calling it ACES Chapter List, we're going to call this an Only Right article page. Okay, and we go down bottom and click on Save. And now we have everything we had before, And so I'm kind of creating an HTML5 page. That's good. I just have a lot too much content in here. Okay, so how do I deal with that? Well, I'm going to just go inside the body. And I'm going to get rid of all of our code that's inside the body. All right, there we go. And we've got that. And the title is not going to be assist page anymore, but let's call it only write main article, because that's what it is. And for right now, we're not going to have a style sheet. So I'm just going to take that text and toggle it into a comment. So I highlight it, right click. Hell, that was not what I intended at all. So let's undo that. So I highlight it, right click. Okay, well, it looks like my right clicking is not behaving well in this virtual machine. The life of a virtual machine is an exciting one sometimes, so we're just going to turn it into a comment the hard way. We're going to type in the characters to make something an XML comment. Okay, so this should put out a page without any content in it. Okay, let's try that. Okay, so we're not going to be taking any of the content from the article document, and I'm just going to put an H2 title here, and I'm going to put in my classic Hi Mom. I used to do this when my mom was still with us. It would remind me to call my mom after I did one of these examples. Now, she's been gone a few years now, so it just brings back fond memories of my mom, who was not an XSLT guru. Okay, so again, I'm going to get on an instance document, and I'm going to create a transformation scenario, and I need a new one. XML transformation with XSLT. Okay, and I want this to be more general, so I'm going to call this generate article page. Okay, and I'm going to use as the XML document whatever file we're on. We're going to transform it. I'm going to search for the proper XSLT, generate only write article page. That looks good. I'm going to open that. And I don't really like all this path information that we get. Because it means I can't move this all that well. So I'm just going to get rid of all that and just have the file name in the extension there. This is an XSL 2.0 style sheet, so Saxon 6.5.5 doesn't have enough features for that. And because our Oxygen product comes with all of the Saxon transformation engines, I'm going to take the high-end one, Saxon Professional Edition 9.5.17. I'm just going to pick that. And if it can be done with a Saxon XSLT engine, it's going to be done there. And then we're going to click on output. What do we want? We want to save it as, and if you want to use the same style sheet for multiple content documents, which a lot of you are going to want to do in your project, the best thing to do is to come over here to the right of, click the radio button for Save As, which I think it was already clicked. And then instead of typing in the file name, use the editor variable name for the current file name. And that's about the fourth one, $, curly CFN, the current file name without the extension. So if we click on that, it puts in the current file name, but we don't have an extension, so we just say .html. Of course, that wasn't a dot, that was a comma. So back up over that and really say .html. And then I always say open in the browser, because after I run the transformation, I want to see the output in the browser. Okay? And we're just going to say OK. And apply associated. So what do we get? Well, we get a page that says Hi Mom. Well, that doesn't have anything from the input on it. But let's see, we did get a page that the browser would open. That's good, so I'm not going to close that. And also, we have in our same directory, because that was the default, we have a file that had the same file name as the current file name, it's the XML, but it has the extension .html. So there's our HTML page. Let's open that and look at that. Open. All right, I'm going to close this little window at the bottom so we can see more. And we can see we have an HTML5 page. And for those of you who don't remember from the last unit that we had, HTML5 is not proper, well-formed XML. Because, for instance, the title tag that we have here, I'm sorry, the title tag has a start tag and an end tag, but the one before it, the meta tag, which got inserted for us on the basis of some of the things that we selected in our XSL output instruction, the meta tag has just the start tag. It's not marked as an empty element. It's not given an end tag. This does actually conform with the HTML5 spec, and it makes headaches for the Oxygen XML editor. So I'd rather show you how to create a proper HTML5 page and not worry about the Oxygen XML editor, thinking that the output is well formed, because the committee that's been working on HTML5 still hasn't got their head together and created a set of rules for HTML5 that assures that you get a well-formed XML document. So there we are. We've got that. So that's what we wanted. It's a pretty page. It doesn't have anything from the input document yet. So what we're going to want to do, let's take a peek at the input document. The root element is called article. And then with that, we have a title. Okay, we don't have any author or anything like that. Then we have the body. And then within the body, we have multiple P or paragraph elements. Okay. We also have a UL that's not inside of a P. So we have a P and we have a UL, and then within the UL we have LIs. And what we've really done is we've really borrowed a lot of things from plain old HTML. And then within the body of the P's and the LI's, we have some mixed content that is a combination here of down in the LI's, running text, and then plain old HTML link elements created with A tags. But a little bit higher up, we have some things that are marked up in a little more semantic way. We have mixed content in a couple of the paragraphs where we can have structure, which is like an A tag, but it's a little more semantically strong. And then we also have person up here too. Okay, so we have person and structure and then just plain old links with A tags. Okay, let's start to work at this as a and sort of incremental approach. Okay, so what's the first thing I'm going to do? Well, I'd like to know that there's going to be a style here. So let's, instead of chapter style, let's create article style. Okay, and let's take that link to the style sheet out of the comment. Whoop, went a little too far there. And save that. And now we need a new CSS style sheet. So you say new CSS. Create. Doesn't do well with the double clicks in my virtual machine. And again, the first thing I like to do, and I recommend it to you, is to simply have a style rule for something like the body, something big, and give it an obvious style. And I like to do background color pink because it's a little unusual and you should be able to find what you want. So now I've got to save this, save as, and we're going to call it article style, because that's the name that we used on the link element, and it's going to add the .css for us. Okay, so now if we go back and run the transformation again, we still should get a Hi Mom page, but it should have a pink background. So let's see how that goes. To rerun the same transformation that we've already run, the same scenario, we just click on the red play button. Ah, and there it is, a pink Hi Mom. I think she would have liked that. Okay, good. So let's go to article style, and let's do, we're not going to do too much. I'm going to get rid of my pink this time instead of putting it into a comment. And what I really want to do is I want to control the typography. And although there are a lot of people who say that running text should be set in type that has serifs. Those are the little feet and hats on the top and the bottom of the letter form. It's still true for most text that's going to be rendered on a screen that serif fonts look a little jaggy, and sans serif fonts still look better. So whereas if I was coming up with typography for the printed page, I might want to put some of my text into a serif font. Here I'm just going to say font family sans serif. So font family, and one of the choices is Arial, Helvetica, sans serif. So Arial will work if I'm on a Windows machine. Helvetica will work if I'm on a Mac or Linux machine, and sans serif is the default typeface for sans serif, and there's one of those implemented on all the platforms. So let's go back again. So having saved that, let's go back and transform my document. And again, I got rid of my pinky background, but now I've got probably Helvetica because I'm running this on a Mac. Okay, so probably Helvetica was found, and that's what we're looking at. And I like that typeface for most of the text I put into my web pages. All right, so what do we have again? Well, we have a title. So instead of Hi Mom, let's put out our title. Okay? All right, so instead of Hi Mom here, what I do is that if you look at what the style or pattern of this template rule that matches the root of the document tree, it's really fill in the blanks, okay? It's not rule-based, okay? And so I'm just going to take a fill in the blanks approach to how to retrieve the title. So I'll get rid of Hi Mom, and I'm going to put in XSL value of, because that's how we pull things off in a fill in the blanks. And then we say select equals, and where are we? Let's just give it an absolute XPath expression. Include the root of the document, and then article, and then title. That's the last one we want to navigate to, and we're going to get the contents of it. And we don't have to have a star tag end tag because we're not enclosing anything, so we'll just put a slash there, and it'll turn it into an empty element. So now if I run that again, I should, instead of Hi Mom, I should see the proper article title. So let's go back. And I think it typically helps here when you're working like this. It typically helps to always point to the XML document and have the transformation scenario match an XML document to the XSLT document. So click on the XML document, click on the transform, welcome to Only Right. Okay, I kind of like how that looks. Okay, that looks good to me. All right, now what can we do? Well, we've got a body, everything is in a body, and we have P's and ULs, and that looks like it. Now, sometimes here's what I like to do. Sometimes I just like to do this. Let's come up with rules for P and UL. So we just do, when we want a second rule, we say XSL template match equal plain old P, okay? And then we end the start tag, and it gives us an end tag. That's good. So that becomes the rule. And now what's the template text? Well, if we have a paragraph, we want to put it on the HTML side, we want to put it right back inside of a P. So let's say we have a P here. All right, that's good. And what's going to go inside of the P? Well, we're going to want to push out the text that's inside of the P. Now, up there where we were pulling out the title, we did it with an XSL the value of. But as soon as your elements, like the P, can hold mixed content, the way to push out the text content that's in the element and to cause the template rules to fire for any sub-element content that is in there is to put it in an XSL apply templates. So the rule-based style here says XSL apply templates. Okay? And again, that's empty element, so that goes right there. Okay, and let's, so we have all that stuff there. That's good. Now, for right now, let's just see what this gets us, because we've made a mistake so far, and I just want to get you a chance to see what it looks like. Okay, so let's try to transform this and see if we get anything more than just the title. And we don't. Well, why did that happen? Well, if we look at the XSLT style sheet, we'll see that up here in the template rule that matched the slash, we put out the head, okay, with the H2, and then we just put out the rest of the page. We never started up the navigation to the children of slash. Oh, so to start up the navigation again, we have to put in XSL apply templates here. And again, that's an empty element, the way we're using it here. So that's what's going to cause the transformation engine to continue to read through the input document and to visit the children of the slash, which include the paragraphs. Okay, so let's give that a save. Now let's see if we get any paragraphs out. Yeah, you're getting a lot of paragraphs out. That looks pretty good. Not bad at all. Now, what's good? Well, we appear to have some interesting things. Now, what happened was we had reached down and pulled out this title, right? And now, when we started up the navigation, we encountered the title again. So there are two things that we can do. One is we can take the code that prints the title, and we can say, oh, let's take that code out of fill in the blanks style and put it into rule-based style. Or we can have a rule that says, oh, I don't want to do anything for that because I already printed it. Okay, so let's do the former, okay? Let's say, instead of doing this in a rule-based way, let's not reach down and pull that out from our top-level rule. Let's let that flow as the XSLT processor reads the input. So what would that look like? Well, it would look like this, okay? Before having a template for P, we'll put in a template rule for title. So let's do XSL template. And we'll say match equals title. All right. So now we're going to pull out this line. We're not going to do it up in the main template. We're going to put it in here. That looks pretty cool. Okay, so I'm going to get rid of the extra blank line up there. So inside the body, we're saying just put out the begin of the body tag, navigate to all the children, and then put out the end body tag. So when it navigates to all the children, it's going to include title. This one's going to match, and then we're going to fire off the template rule, and we're going to put in the template the text, which is the H2. Now, could we leave this XPath expression to say, I want the value of /article/title? We could, okay? But it's better documentation that say, okay, I'm on title. I'm actually matched on the title element. How do I say I want the text that's in the element? Well, I just say select, period. Okay, so this should put the title out, and then when it matches on the paragraphs, it'll put the paragraphs out. So let's see how that works. So we go back to our document, run the transformation again. Now we only get one copy of the title. It still has that H2 formatting that we like, and now we're getting all the paragraphs that are good. I think that's looking quite good. Now the only problem that I see is this paragraph here that starts to revise the only right portal, blah, blah, blah. This has a lot of, well, let me back up. I do see problems in the earlier paragraphs. For instance, I know that Frank Lloyd Wright is a person that we marked up with a person sub-element, okay? And right now, we're just getting the text that's in there. We're not getting any transformation that's going to allow us to turn that into a link or give it special typography. So that's not happening. And that's not happening on the person. That's not happening on a series of structures that we have in paragraph 2. We have a couple more structures in paragraph 3. So we need to get that fixed. The other thing is, structurally, we have in this big paragraph that's the next to last, we had a UL with a bunch of LIs in them. But even though HTML would have recognized the UL and the LI, because of the way that the transformation works, what gets burped into the output is not the element tags and the text that's inside them. It's just the text that's inside them. So we didn't get those tags in the output. Okay, so now we just have everything that was in the UL and the LIs is just crammed into the paragraph. And that's not really what we want. Okay, so we're going to have to do some work to get things properly into the structures that we're looking for. Now, I tend to like to get the structure of the document working before I get the kind of the typography working. Although I've got to say that we changed the type on this from Times New Roman to Helvetica. It's simply because Times New Roman hurts my eyes. It is so ugly, I think, when it's on a web page. So I do that first just because of my overall sensibilities. So I'm going to close this. I'm going to say, in addition to the P's, we want to do something with the ULs and something with the LIs. Okay, let's see if we can do that. All right. And by the way, let's take a peek at the HTML that is underneath that web page that we've been seeing. Now, if you're on the editor page for an HTML document, you can, if you want to look at it in the browser, you can just go up and click on the browser icon right here, the one with the world on it, and you'll see what we just saw. Okay, but let's look at what's inside of it. Well, we have an HTML5 page with an H2, and then there's the first paragraph, and there's the second. So we're getting the P's and the NP's. They're working fine. But we have this whole big thing that was in the UL, okay? And that's not really inside anything at all. Now, it turns out the browser is pretty lenient. Even though this text should be inside of a paragraph, it goes, well, they probably forgot to give us a paragraph type, paragraph tag. So it treats this as one big paragraph, even though it's not inside of a UL or anything. And then we get to the end, and now we got back to things that were inside of a P, and now we're generating P tags for those. So what we need is we want to make sure that the next version of this puts the ULs out and puts the LIs out too. All right, let's make that happen. So all we need to do is to come up with a rule that's going to match. Now, what I tend to do when I write these is I write the rules in hierarchical order, okay? Now, how do they match? Do they match in some kind of order? Well, as long as you only have one rule for each tag name, okay, you code them in whatever order you want. If you decide to have a duplicate, which is usually not a good idea, okay, you'll get the last one. So if we coded 2 rules for P, the one that would really work would be the second rule for P. If we coded 2 rules for title, the rule that would really work would be the second one. But apart from that, if you're not accidentally duplicating rules and each of your rules has a different match expression, then you can put them in any order that you want. But I like to put them in about the hierarchical order that they occur in the document, because when I go to maintain the style sheet, I can find the code a lot easier because I've got a mental model about how the content is organized in the document, and I've organized the style sheet in the same way. So I've got P's, and then I've got ULs. So let's do a UL. XSL template. And now we're going to say match equal UL, unordered list. And what are we going to do? Well, we're going to put out an unordered list. So it happens that we're using the same tag language there. So we've got the unordered list, and now what do we need to do? Well, I could try to do it the wrong way, and you could see that. But if you remember, what we need to do is we need to navigate to the children of UL, because it has these LI children. So how do we get there? Good old XSL apply templates is the code that will navigate to the children of UL. So let's just do that. Let's not put the code in a template rule for the LIs yet, and let's see what we get. Well, go back to our article, format. Oh, great. So we still have the paragraphs, but as you can see, the UL has given us an indent, okay, but because it's not recognizing the LIs, we're not getting any bullet points. We're just getting one big block of text, which is the contents of all of the LIs that are inside the UL. And again, if we look at the HTML content itself, we'll see that we put out the UL, but because when we visit the LIs, we don't have a rule for the LIs, we're going to get the default behavior, which is burp out the text that's inside of the LIs. So we don't get the tag surrounding the text for the LI, which would be nice, but we don't. What we get is just a collection of all the text that's inside the LIs. And if we go down here, we're going to come to the end of the UL pretty soon. There it is. So that worked pretty well. All right, let's get the LIs in. So we're going to go to the XSLT page, and we're going to code up a rule for the LIs. And this is just how I do it. I mean, I'm not doing it the slow way for you, and I do it a fast way for me. This is how I do it. This is how I see most people do it, who do this for a living. This is how I did it when I did it for a living. Let's get that end tag where it's supposed to be. Come on. There we go. That's better. All right. So if we encounter an LI tag, well, we want to put out an LI, because it turns out we're using the same syntax for tags in both of the languages. Okay, and then I just want to point the following thing out. How do you know whether you're going to put code in like we did for title? The title, we had, some surrounding text. In fact, you could look at the text of title to look like that, right? So that's kind of like the P's and kind of like the ULs. We have the H2s. And what do we say here is we say we want XSL value of, okay, select equal period. Now that's going to take all the text that's inside the title and it's going to push it into the output, okay? Now that's appropriate when we don't have any sub-elements. So title is not allowed to have mixed content, okay? And so this gets all of the text out of title just fine. But for instance, the paragraph, that would not have worked for a paragraph because it has sub-elements, okay? And it won't work for UL because that has sub-elements as well. And so this is going to be true because our definition of LI says that it can have mixed content too. We don't want to use an XSL value of. We want to use XSL apply templates. And when I get about this far, I start cutting and copying and pasting. I'm saying, well, I'm going to put the same thing in the LI that I put into the UL. So let's do that. Save that. Go to the article and transform it. And now I've got some pretty looking bullet points that are coming up for each of my LIs. So at this point, I don't have, I'm not doing anything typographically special for the sub-elements that are in the mixed content. All right, I'm just taking the text that's inside the sub-element and I'm printing it as regular text, but for instance, I'm not using the URLs or the hrefs in order to create some kind of a link. Well, let's create some kind of links. Let's reacquaint ourselves to the kinds of things that we can find in here. The first one is person. Okay, so let's come up with a rule for person. All right. So, rules for person. Make a template rule for person. XSL template. Match equal person. Okay. Now, what do we want to do? Well, we would like to take the text that's inside a person, okay, and we would like to have that be plopped into an A tag that had the right styling. Okay, how are we going to do that? Well, let's do it the following way. Let's say we're going to put out a link, which is an A tag. Okay, and let's say the href is equal to, and let's not put that in yet, okay, because we're going to have to use an attribute value template for that. And then what's the text that we want inside the link? Well, we want the value of the text that's inside a person. Now, are we going to allow further markups, sub-element context on the person? Well, I say no. So how do we get the text out? We can do it with a plain old value of select equal period. So XSL value of, not XSK. That's not going to work. XSL value of select equals period, and then it's an empty element, and it goes right there. So we're going to do that. Well, so we should get a link on this person. All right, now what I'd like to do is make these things work just a bit at a time. So I'm not trying to do too many things at once. So let's transform this. And we have a link for Frank Lloyd Wright. Okay, so this looks good. And then let's click on that. And where does that go? It doesn't go anywhere at all. Why? Because I didn't put an href into it. I didn't put any value into the href. All right. So let's go back to our XSL. And how do we get the value for the href? You'll remember that when we're extracting text from the input document and we're putting it inside of an attribute value on the output side, we need to use this thing called an attribute value template, which is just curly braces, okay, and we can have either the name, if we wanted it to be just the text that was in the element, we could have put a period here. But no, we want what's in one of the attributes. And as I remember, the attribute is URL. Let's look. Attribute is URL. Okay, fine, let's do that. So let's go in here and let's say attribute, which is an @ sign, and it's capital URL. Okay, so that's going to give us a proper link. So let's see that. All right, we're going to go to the article and transform it. All right, Frank Lloyd Wright. Now let's see if this actually goes to a proper page. Oh, it goes to the Frank Lloyd Wright page in the Only Wright portal. Well, it took us to exactly the right place that we wanted to go. That's very nice, because you have to remember what we're doing is that we're generating the HTML that makes up the home page for the Only Wright portal, right? We're generating this. Okay, now we didn't, in the original one, mark up Frank Lloyd Wright. But let's decide that if we have a person, that we would like their name to be in blue and in bold. Okay, so how do we do that? Well, we do it like this. So let's, in our style sheet, I'm sorry, in our code, let's find our code. Let's say that this has a style, okay? So we're going to say class equal person, okay? So how do we take care of that? So we're going to go over to our style sheet, and we're going to have a rule for a person, okay? And it's not really liking that right now. Sorry. Probably person.a. Is that working better? Nope, it doesn't. Well, we're going to take a slight pause while I find the code here. I'll be right back. Well, hi all, I'm back, and what I've done is I've gone and found the style sheet from the Only Right portal, and I figured I wasn't going to reinvent the wheel. And what I've got is I've got a page that's got a CSS positioning based layout, and then I've got special rules for the links. Okay, so we've got a series of rules for link for the A tag to have a class called portal link, and a special one is just a plain link when we've already visited it, if we're hovering over it, if it's currently active. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to borrow these styles because apparently I thought they were a good idea when I wrote that page. And this is not a CSS course, right? And we're just going to change them around to work with what we have. So I'm going to copy that, and I'm going to put that into my article style.css. So I'm going to copy them in. All right. And I'm going to have to change a couple things. One is that these aren't in a particular div, like middle container. So I'm going to get rid of that part of the selector for the style rule. And if you're a CSS person, you'll know how that works. And get rid of it there. And I'm going to get rid of that there. And so now I've got that. And then, so this says if I have an A tag and it has the class portal link, when it's just in the, this is called a pseudo class, this link. When it's just rendered as a normal link, then I would like these qualities. Okay, so what I need to do is I need to change the name of the class that I put on that link to portal link. So we'll do that. So we'll save this first. Okay, and then we'll go back to the XSL page. and I said class equals person, but now it's going to be more general. It's going to be portal link. And I think that's the name of it. Let's just make sure we've got the capitalization right. Portal link. Yeah, that's right. All right. And let's go back to the XSL and let's save this. And let's go back to the XML and transform it. Oh, we have an error. So we need to compile a style sheet. One error detected. So we apparently have an error in our style sheet. And let's see what it doesn't like about that. Element type A must be followed by either an attribute or that. Aha, here's our problem. We didn't have a close quote on the curly braces. Okay, so we said href equals, and then that attribute needs double quotes at both ends, and now we're pulling the value off of the URL attribute. Okay, so that works better. I hate it when stuff goes wrong, but that's it. Oh, and there we are. So we've got here, we've got Frank Lloyd Wright marked up just the way the rest of the portal links were. And it takes us to the Frank Lloyd Wright page, just like we wanted it to. Very nice. Okay, so we've got a person to work. Now we have to get a structure to work. Okay, and then just to show you how this works, if we hover over it, it changes to a nice gold. If we click on it, it changes color back to the original hue because it turns active. And the way I typically do these things, if I want it to look attractive, I get rid of the underline. Okay, although I do have some friends that say if people want it to have a link, you ought to at least have a line of dots underneath. But I kind of like it just the way it is. And you know it's a link because when you mouse over it, it changes color. And it's a prettier link than the default styling for that. And again, just to look at that, how did that work? You'll be able to see it in the files that I put out with the demo. But if we look at article style, we have a series of rules for, one is for an A tag that's in the link mode. That's just a plain A tag that's you're not hovering over, hasn't been visited yet. What it's to look like when it's already been visited, what it's to look like when you're hovering over it, and what it's to look like if you've already clicked it and you haven't left the page yet. That's what we mean by active. Okay, that's a very short length of time. All right, so that's how we do that with CSS. All right, so yeah, let's take a look at the HTML. I don't know why we're doing that, but let's look at what we got. We got this, we got the A tag, we got the URL that we had coded, class equals portal link, and then we surrounded the text Frank Lloyd Wright, just what we wanted to be done. And it's looking good. All right, now what other kind of things are we not getting taken care of? We have a plain old A tag, okay? And we're not taking care of those yet. So let's take care of a plain old A tag. Okay. Well, actually, let's do the structure first because that's more easily done. Okay. So let's let's say, well, if we have something that works for structure, and the syntax of structure, and if we have something that works for person, and the syntax of structure is just like the syntax for person. So why don't we copy person and just change the match equals to structure, and now it's going to do all our structures too. Okay, this will get us a lot of things done. So go back, run the transformation, and look at that. We've got the structures. So let's see, Roby House. Yep, takes us to Roby House. That's nice. Taliesin, for those of you who'd like to go to Spring Green. Taliesin, picture by yours truly. And that's it for all of those. So we've got structures and persons, but not normal links. And there's a lot of normal links in here. And what I wanted to do is I wanted people to be able to tell the difference between a link. I think it was going to link back into my portal. So I wanted to give them a special style that I called the portal link style. So, and just the link that's going to link to some content on the web, and I wanted to have that be a more ordinary link style. Okay, so let's go back and let's find this CSS page that I retrieved, and let's find out, it was called Only Right Style, and I was actually able to get this off the web by going and using an interesting feature of the Oxygen XML editor. You can come up here and click on File, Open URL. So I figured out the URL of the CSS page, and I said OK, and it retrieved it and opened it. So you can do that for an HTML page. You can do that for a CSS document. You can do it for an XSLT document if it's on the web server, and you can just look at it and do whatever you want. So let's see, do I do anything for normal links? And don't know whether I do or not. Let me look. Middle container, a hover, a active, yeah, that's it. So let's take these rules. The middle container was the part of the page that had this content in it. Let's take these rules. Okay, beginning with the one for link. Okay, and let's add those to our style sheet for article style. And let's just paste them down the bottom. And this is saying, now I'm no longer trying to restrict this to a particular div. So let's get rid of that. So we're just saying if it's an A tag that doesn't have a special class, like we specified for portal link. Okay. And there we are. So all we're doing is we're controlling the color. So the color looks like it's going to be the same for a regular link, for visited. If I'm hovering over it, I'm going to change the color so I can see that I'm hovering over it. And if it's active, it's going to be the regular old color. So that's going to take care of that. And let's go back to the XSL, and let's take care of what happens when we get A tags. Well, what do we want to do? Well, we want to match on A, XSL, template, match equals A. All right. So how do we want to do this? Well, we want to put out an HTML A tag. We're going to have href equal, and let's not put anything into that. All right. And now we want to have the text. So let's say the same thing we said before. XSL value of select equal a dot for whatever is enclosed by the A tag. Put that right there. Okay. And is the name of the attribute going to be URL, or if it's a normal A tag, it's going to be href. So let's just put the curly braces in. Sorry, did the wrong braces. Curlies here. And let's say that we want the href, @ href. Okay, so this is sort of an interesting way of copying a tag exactly the way it is. Okay, this is sort of a straight through copy without explicitly saying that we want to copy it. And go back to the XML document and transform that. And there we are. Here are the rest of them. So there's a link for the Museum Meiji Mora that I visited back in 2007. And what do they highlight? The lobby of the Frank Lloyd Wright designed Imperial Hotel. And the part that they reconstructed there is the garden in the lobby. So that's right there. It's very nice. And if we click on Imperial Hotel Main Entrance Hall and Lobby, we'll see that's our version of the photo for that structure. You can see that I was there, I would say the fall, but I was there in the first couple days of December, and still the leaves were not completely brown. So wonderful climate there in Japan compared to Chicago. Okay, and we've got something for the Bootstrap 3.0 framework. And that takes us to Bootstrap. And SciDoc CRM takes us to SciDoc CRM. And where else? Project I worked on is the DH Creation Guide. I've got a credit in here somewhere. You can go there too. All right. So what we've done here is that we very incrementally taken an XML content document, and we have started out by, as you recall, and I want to emphasize this, I didn't even try to remember how to start an HTML5 page. I stole it from the last project I did, and I just got rid of all the content between the body, and I replaced it with an XSL apply templates. Okay, and that's what kicked off the navigation to the children. Okay, and then I have a rule for each of the children. I have one for the title, one for the paragraph, one for the UL, one for the LI. And then I have a title for the children of the P and the LI that are mixed content. So I have a person rule, a structure rule, and just an A-link rule. And how did I come up with the CSS to style the links? Well, I went and found the style sheet that I created for the Only Right site called onlyrightstyle.css. And I went and found the rules that I made work, well, probably back in 2008. So they've been working for 7 years, and they work great. No, probably back in 2007. So they've been working for 8 years. And I just had to change it because we had an ID for the div that it was in that I wanted to change, and I copied these, and I made these work. So this sort of approach where you do a little bit of copying because you don't want to reinvent the wheel if you can avoid it, and then you start at the very top of the document, just start with a plain HTML page and show you can get that, then add all the content as one big blob, then divide out the paragraphs, then divide out the UL, then divide out the LIs, then take the mixed content and resolve the person, resolve the structure, resolve the A tag, and boom, you're done. And what's really nice here, and I just want to call your attention to it, is that we didn't have to have any use of the instruction XSL if. And that's because when you really think of it, the content that was in the input XML document drove the transformation. So the rules that got fired off only fire off in the case that we've encountered the element that we're interested in, So we don't have to check, oh, do we have some kind of optional content? There may be optional content that could have been there, but because the content isn't in the input, as we navigate through it using the default navigational approach, we only fire off the rules for the elements that we have. And so we don't have to put a lot of conditional things. In fact, we don't have to put, in this case, any conditional things into the code. Okay, and it's a really different style, and I consider this to be kind of a Zen style. So if we looked at the style we used in the last unit, navigational style, I consider that to be a very sort of macho programmer style. It's very much for things like data interchange, and it really looked like a typical procedural programming language where we had loops and all that kind of stuff. And we controlled the order in which we visited all the content that was in the document. Whereas here, in the style that I would say is a lot more Zen, we're really letting the document flow over the program. And it only activates the part of the programs that are appropriate for the content that we're experiencing at this very instant. And it's very much kind of let the data come to us. It's very kind of peaceful and Zen-like. And it's very pretty. This is a style that is most appropriate for publishing. Could it be used for things like data interchange? Yes, it could. And there are some people who only know this kind of style and they use it for just about everything. But I would say that the style that we have here, the rule-based style, is most appropriate for publishing documents where they're fairly irregular and we never really know what's coming next in the content, because there are so many possibilities in something like a book or an article or a manual that probably better to set up the rules and then let the content just flow over top of our program, which is how we do it. So having said that, I'm going to leave you with that vision, and I'm going to say bye until next time. Bye-bye.